Welcome to Creating Disney Magic with Lee Cockerell. Lessons in leadership, management, and customer service. You can create magic too. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and I'm here with Lee Cockerell. And last episode, I mentioned if you have listener questions, send them in and we get them, which Lee always likes. Lee, for one, Lee likes it when you write to us and tell him you love the show. So do that. And two, Lee likes it when you have a question. This question comes from Ashley, and I don't know if I should give this isn't a bad one. I just never know anymore if I should give someone's full name. So I won't because this one sat in the bucket for just a little bit before I used it. So Ashley said that customer service is at the forefront of our mission, and our biggest challenge is the customer that has unrealistic expectations, and then how to handle customer service from a standpoint with safety first. It's a challenge to train staff on maintaining a customer first attitude when some of the time we're not able to give in to a customer's wants due to safety constraints or situations that we have no control over. All right, Lee, with safety being the first key in the four keys at Disney, how did you maintain that customer first attitude, but also uh, safety is our number one priority?
Well, I think in life we just have to say there are exceptions, and safety is first, period. And courtesy, you can't, being courteous while somebody dies is not a good idea. So it's sometimes there are exceptions, and we love our kids, but we kick their rear end when they run in the street, and we discipline them. And so I think just there are exceptions, and you shouldn't worry. But I think you talk the guests down, and you talk to them, and tell them, I'm sorry I had to speak to you that way, but we were concerned about your safety. And uh, when they say, well, I want to do this anyway, and I say, I'm sorry. You got to stick to the policy when it comes to safety. I mean, there's no guests can have well, I know how to do it. I've done it before. Nobody said anything the last time. Don't be that person that doesn't stick to your guns on safety. That's what I always say with the airline pilot. Please stick to your procedure for taking this plane up. And don't, just because your mother wants you to get home quicker, don't not follow some of the rules. And so there are exceptions to life. The general rule is most of the time we are just nice and we treat you right and the customer's everything. And there are times when customers are unreasonable, and when they are, and it has anything to do with safety particularly, then you would be irresponsible if you didn't back up and go around that customer first policy, because your customer, if it is the customer first, you want to keep them safe. And you may want to explain that to the customer. We are a customer service organization, sir, and that's why I'm not letting you do that. And but there are people who are just totally they who knows. But you just got to stay cool, calm. Don't yell at them and scream at them. Just be firm. That's the policy. There's nothing you can do about it. If you get too much grief, you can ask them, would you like me to get our general manager, or would you like to speak to somebody else? But I have to stick to this, and I just can't imagine letting you do that, because it's against our safety policy. And we want you to be safe. We care about you. That's why I'm enforcing this policy. That's, yeah. And they won't like it. Well, that's the way it goes.
I witnessed a great example of this at Disney. We were getting we were in line for the Tower of Terror, and the cast member who made sure the kids were tall enough, went on a break, or it was time to switch out into shift, whatever, I don't know. And then the family gets up there, and the cast member, because there was a kid that you could tell right on the line, are they tall enough? And the cast member that who was there now said, I'm sorry, I need to measure you and make sure you're tall enough. And the father kind of spoke up and said, hey, they already did. He's tall enough. And the cast member said, I'm sure they did, and I'm sure it's fine, but I didn't see it. And now I'm responsible for whether or not you get on this ride safely. And I just need to, it'll only take a moment. And sure enough, the kid was tall enough. Everything was fine. But I thought,
Probably.
wow, that would have been really easy to just back off and say, "Oh, I'm sure the other cast member." But no, that new cast member said, "This is my responsibility to make sure the kid's tall enough and therefore safe on this ride."
That's a great story, and I think what you just said is the person that's responsible is the person who's there, and not hearsay or what somebody said, or fathers and mothers will say a lot of things to get what they want for their children. So that's a great story, and it's so accurate. Yeah, safety, and because at Disney, for instance, a kid gets killed or an adult, or I mean, you never recover from that. I mean, you never, never, never. And God help us. I mean, there's nothing more important than people's lives. Nothing.
Mhm.
Uh, Dad can yell at us and work us over, but no. Uh, uh, People will say anything sometimes to get what they want, but we got to stick by the policy, the procedure, the operating guideline. And we know many incidents around the country where people died because people didn't follow policy. They didn't have a good checklist. They didn't have good training. There was a policy, but the cast member didn't know about it. Uh, uh, I just read this today on the internet. A lady died after eating some food in some restaurant that had something she was allergic to, and they confirmed that it wasn't in there and wasn't in there. She ate it. 30 minutes later, fell outside and died. And talk about safety first. Don't assume. Go find out for sure what's in that recipe. 100%. And it's our responsibility to look after each other, to take care of people, just like we do our children. And yeah, so sometimes you got to do the hard stuff, and the customer's not always going to be agreeable because that's how people are. But our goal is it's not the customer's job to enforce safety; it's our job. And as I always say, the customer can do anything they want, but we are in charge when you're in our business. And
Yeah.
it's irresponsible not to follow the good safety practices. It's just unacceptable.
I recall one time your Lee's son, Dan, or Daniel, as I always say when I'm talking to Lee, he told a story about at Disney. There was, I don't remember the details. This did not happen at a Disney park. Somewhere else in the country, someone died on a log flume ride or some ride like that. And then the vice presidents at Disney had a meeting about what would we do if that was us? Even though they didn't have that ride, they had a meeting about what would we do? How could we have prevented this? Because safety's such a priority. And Dan would talk about it as in, okay, you can brag that you have a 99.5 safety rating on your rides, but what if you're the family member of the 0.5% that something bad happens to? It's just not acceptable. And therefore, there is no wiggle room. There is nothing comes before making sure you do not get hurt.
So if I told you you were coming to Disney and I said, well, only 1% of people die every day, I mean, you go, what? Or a 0.5%? Actually, only 1 out of 1 million. No. I mean, this is, yeah. But people can take risks when they shouldn't. And they do it for many reasons. They maybe have promised their kid he's going to get to ride the ride, and dad wants to stick in there. But we got to follow. We got a policy. We got a principle. We got a height, and that's it. And we don't start making exceptions, because
Yeah.
when you make exceptions, eventually something goes wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. And when something goes wrong, it's not the fault of the father who was persistent and arguing
No.
and pushing for it.
Every day, a lot of people don't put on their seatbelt. Most people, it's not a problem. But if you have an accident and you don't have it on, the odds of you dying go up dramatically. So it's an odds game, and odds are don't play an odds game. Play safety. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you handle those situations, Lee, where safety's involved? So even though you're a customer first organization, you have to say no, and they're upset about it. How do you, as the frontline worker, handle that?
I think hopefully you have the support of your management to stick to your guns, and they're not going to override you. So if I know my manager's backing me and I'm in charge and I have the authority to make this, then I'm going to do it. and that's the key. Everybody likes to look after themselves, and we got to make sure the cast members at Disney and anywhere else trust me as their manager, and they know that I will back them up, and that's the policy. And in fact, what you do when you give people the authority and responsibility is you make them the leader.
Mm.
They're in charge.
So how do you do this as a manager then? Your team is on the front line. You want them to know, stick to your guns, safety first, no matter what.
That would be in every morning huddle we have, talking about safety. And at some point when they come on board, I'd be saying, hey, listen, guys, we got safety issues here. You're going to learn about them. We're going to train you about them. And I expect you to enforce them, and I will back you up. And then every day you talk about safety. Every day. When you were a kid leaving for the day, your mother always said, you say, be careful down there at that light. Watch that. Don't hang out with those people. It's a daily thing we talk about safety. Be safe, be nice. I mean, and sometimes you got to be nice, and the customer's not happy, but they're safe, and that's the way it goes. And
Yeah.
so just be responsible. That's it.
Every morning when my daughter leaves for school, I tell her to drive reckless.
Exactly.
Just to
Exactly, and
give
I'm
that
sure.
reminder.
Yeah, and she knows you love her.
Yeah. I also, on the cold days, go out and start a car for her.
Oh, you're what a guy. Again.
Yeah, it's interesting. She says when I'm gone, like when I'm in Orlando visiting Mr. Lee, her car doesn't magically start every morning.
Well, she'll get a husband that'll buy her one that does start from in the
All
house.
right, back to safety, Lee. I find it interesting, and I do like it that in the Main Street Leader, which if you don't know, the Main Street Leader is the monthly newsletter that Lee writes that you can get for only $9.95 a month, which is pretty outstanding. Great newsletter. And I wouldn't say every issue, but at least every third issue, you have an article about safety. So, in a newsletter that people subscribe to learn about leadership, management, customer service, why do you keep putting articles and reminders about safety in there?
Well, because people have to be reminded because everybody thinks nothing's going to happen to you, happen to them. And every night people go to bed and the next night they don't because they get killed and they do stupid things and people are irrational and there's alcohol involved and drugs and immaturity and recklessness and 16-year-olds that have never driven before, and there's a lot of ways to get hurt, and we've got to keep talking about it, talking about it, and talking about it, because when your daughter goes out and you're not with her, you want her to be thinking about doing the right thing that she's been taught and to understand the consequences. That's why you remind people over and over and over. As Priscilla said, if you love me, tell me. If I want, and my mother's, even when I was 50 years old, told me to be careful when I went down to that intersection. It's a dangerous place. I was 50 years old. She was still telling me about that corner because that's all they think about. Good, responsible leadership thinks about their people being safe, keeping people safe. And then they trust you. He cares about me.
Yeah, and I hope the Main Street Leader and the focus on safety, even if it's taken one manager who reads that to say, okay, I'm going to talk to my team about this, or even one frontline worker to say, well, my manager never talks about safety, but I'm going to make it a priority.
Absolutely. Everybody's responsibility. Number one, keep safe.
Keep safe. Well, if you want to have a great vacation, a safe vacation, I think Magical Vacation Planner can make you help. They can at least help with that. I mean, they're not going to be with you on vacation, although maybe that's a service they could provide. They just go on vacation with you. I might even be up for that. I enjoy a good vacation. You can reach Magical Vacation Planner at 407-442-2694. Let them know that Lee Cockerell sent you, and they probably won't treat you any different because they're going to treat you fantastic anyway, but at least they'll know that you know Lee Cockerell. So there is that. And if you have a question or a topic you would like us to cover on the show, reach out to either one of us. Lee's at leecockerell.com. I'm at jodymayberry.com. And of course, you can keep up with the work we're doing at cockerellacademy.com. Until next week, go out and create magic for others.